G'day guys, Ron here from Osborne Digital Marketing. Today I have the legendary Kyle Roof joining me. What we're going to be discussing is we're going to be talking about what got Kyle into SEO, his business structures, what he does in business now, and then we'll jump into the SEO aspects of it. So we'll make sure that we cover broad topics so we can get a lot of information from him. G'day Kyle, how you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of
No
fun.
worries, man. No worries, dude. Look, I won't bore everyone with the Laura Ipsum story. I won't bore everyone with all your patents and how you got penalized by Google. That's for another YouTube video.
Fair.
Tell me, dude, what got you into SEO? Because obviously you're an attorney and you went to law school. You studied hard at that. Your missus is an attorney.
Also
But
correct.
yeah, but then you left. You left that behind. It wasn't for you. So what's kept it in SEO? What's made you really interested in that game?
You know, when I was a lawyer, I think I was a good lawyer. I think like if you have like an average lawyer, I think I was a notch up, and my wife is a very good attorney. But something that I realized is that I'm never going to be like an expert. I'm never going to invent anything new. You know, the law is the law, and there's a saying like, don't reinvent the wheel. And I had this idea of this frustration that I'm just gonna be a good lawyer for the next like 30 years and or more. And then what? You know, I had a career as a good lawyer. And it really was a very unsatisfying thought. And I was a trial attorney. I was in court every day. And I decided to take a year off is kind of what I wanted to do because I was getting pretty burnt out. And that was 4 years into my practice. And then some twists and turns. I spent time teaching English in Korea just to find like the lowest level of responsibility that I could. But started a business, and then in that business, started a team building websites. But then SEO kind of came as a natural result of that. But I got really good at SEO, and I realized that this is such a new industry. There's no bar to entry. There's no bar test. You know, anybody can do it, and you just have to be the one to go and do it. And within that, you can innovate something. You can be the actual best at something. This is one of those rare moments in time when you can just do anything that you want with it. There are no regulations. There are no industry standards necessarily that everybody has to adhere to. You can simply go out, and if you have the drive and the desire to be the one to do it, you can write your name in the history books. This is your opportunity. Like, this doesn't happen once in a lifetime. This happens once in like 3 lifetimes. And that's why this industry was so exciting for me, because I could get in. I started doing stuff that people weren't very familiar with or new with. I was able to create my own concepts. And in law, that just wasn't there at all. I can also say that you can't travel when you're a trial attorney. You're stuck in that courtroom, you know, every day of the year. And in this profession, I've been able to travel the globe, meet people that are way cooler than I am, and actually make a significant more amount of money quickly. Lawyers don't make as much money as people think. It is fine money, and it does steadily grow up. But in what we're doing now in these types of industries, there really is no ceiling. It's the sky's the limit, and that's also a very sexy part of the job that we do.
Dan, that's interesting, man, because I like asking these questions because I like finding out what drives you. So legacy is something that's very, very important to you. You want to leave a
Yeah,
legacy behind.
I heard
Interesting.
a good line. It was from actually one of the guys that played for the All Blacks. Um,
Hey.
and he was talking about, he had this really great line. It was, you don't own the jersey, you're a caretaker of it. And then he came out and he said, make them remember your name. You know, win or lose, you know, make them remember your name. And it's like, yeah, you can do that. And this, make them remember your name. Go out there and do something significant.
Dude, that's excellent. That's excellent because it's very important, I think, to know what motivates a person behind the camera, like what actually motivates you. So legacy is something that's very, very important. So when it comes to legacy, mate, what are you doing to enshrine your legacy? How is Kyle Roof spending his time now? What's Kyle Roof building? Realistically, we could all sit here and be like, okay, well, you've won up Google. That's the big tick. What now? Where are you going now? Where are you investing your time?
A lot of my time is actually within the software aspect of our businesses. That's where I spend the majority of my time. But I think I'm also helping making them remember my name by coming on shows like with Ronald Osborne here. Like, you know, they're like just being out there and being present is a big thing. I think you can fall off kind of quickly, but I do have those things that people will always remember. They will remember the Lorem Ipsum story and the stuff associated with that and the stuff that I did afterwards as well. And then I'm hoping, honestly, that a lot of people, like with the software, for example, I remember when I didn't have any money and I was going up against these large agencies and I was looking for edges and all that. And then I developed those edges. And then what we've done in the software is we've been very conscious of keeping it at a price point that anybody can use it. You know, the lowest level is $27. That doesn't give you a ton of usage, but if you have, you know, a few pages to optimize and you're going up against some larger players, you're going to get enterprise level data at that price. So one thing that I'm hoping that kind of cements my legacy is that I have done as much as I can to help anybody come along and do high level SEO. Like kind of pull back the curtain a little bit. It's not mystical and magical. It's mathematical. And if you have access to certain tools, anybody could actually get in and do it and be successful and do it against anybody else. Because, you know, in this game, we are direct competitors with everybody else that's going after the keywords, right? So it is that one of the rare times when you are directly competing constantly with everyone else for that SERP real estate. And so I hope something that I can put out there is that I gave everyone an opportunity. Anybody that really wanted the opportunity, they had that opportunity, and that's something that I was able to facilitate.
Very interesting, man. So you're a very generous guy, but then you've obviously got an extremely competitive side. So
you have to be. You have to, don't you? Like when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be competitive.
Yes, you do. It's very, very interesting. Like it's awesome hearing your story because, like I said, I've watched a lot of your stuff, and I hear more so the side about do this with on page, but like hearing what really drives you getting up in the mornings is fascinating to me. And when you said software companies, what software companies are you talking about? Because obviously we've got Pop. What else is there then, mate?
I do have some small things on the side that aren't pretty ready for the light of day yet. But the other thing I've got going on is Internet Marketing Gold, or IMG courses, where I teach SEO. And I mean, even in that, you know, I think we sold my course, like my on-page course, which is kind of like a foundational one. I think we initially sold it for like $500, and the price has gone up to maybe $750 to $1,000. And then I've got like a white hat course. We sell that for around $400 or $500. But what I realized is, what don't we do like a subscription where people, let's do it for $97 a month. It's just such an accessible cost. And then that way they can use it as much as they need to use it. Because so many people buy courses and then don't use them. But then I know there are people who would love that course, but they can't afford the $1,000. Why don't we give it at a price point that's like at this here, and then they can use it as much as they need. They can learn as much as they need. And now within IMG, I think we've got like 50 courses from like 40 something instructors. So you can learn a lot about SEO, and it's also at a price point that makes it accessible. You know, instead of doing like, you have to give us, you know, the lifetime access of $2,500 or $3,000, a lot of people just can't afford that. And even if they can, like if they can scrape it together, there's no guarantee even that they'll get any of it done or apply of it. So we tried to make that also as accessible as possible for people at any price point that they could get in and get knowledge about how to do SEO or how to do digital marketing in general.
Interesting. So you're not willing to drop the secrets on the stuff you're developing now, or is it anything in the SEO game or something you've just...
Yeah, so I'm working on a tool that's going to help with like piracy issues, the DMCA takedown type stuff. And
Okay.
we're actually trying to figure out the way to most efficiently find sites that are being pirated, because that's not as easy as you would think. And initially we're using like kind of co-opting on something like with Copyscape, and Copyscape is actually inefficient and misses a lot. So we've had to develop different tools, and that's been an interesting process and a lot of up and downs, but that's kind of maybe the one that'll see the light of day the soonest. And also we're trying to keep that at a price point, you know, where maybe for, you think about like the amount of money and in time, especially if you have a sweat equity that you invested in putting pages together, right? And then some Yahoo is going to come across and just swipe them and repost them. So we're trying to keep that at a price point that, let's say you have 5 valuable pages, you know, maybe for something like $5 to $10 a month, you can have them protected, and we can check to see if somebody is taking your stuff. And if you find it, then we can do a pretty easy takedown for you.
Marvelous. That's actually a really good idea, because I went through couple of months ago, someone did exactly that to the Osborne digital marketing site, copied all of my stuff. And then, yeah, man, copied it all out. And I had to, it was good because I got a YouTube video out of it. It's like, this is where you file your DMCA. This is how you file it with Google. That, like, I got a YouTube video out of it, but yeah, it was pretty shit.
I think I would prefer the no YouTube video and
Yeah.
no piracy if I had to choose. You know, if I had to choose one or the other.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, dude, that's interesting. I like that. I think I think going forward, when it's just mass spinners out there, like AI being a mass spinner, yeah, I think that's actually a really good business venture, really good protection, especially for your more enterprise level individuals as well.
Yeah.
That'd be a fantastic business. Damn.
Yeah, if people run agencies, I can see this as a nice add-on product where you can say like, hey, look, we did all this work, but do you want to make sure that you're protecting your sites? We have this little add-on type thing, and maybe you charge $250 a month to cover a certain amount of things, but then the price point for the agency person is very reasonable.
Fantastic, man. Looking forward to that. Dude, so where are you living now? Where are you residing?
I live in Thailand. I live in Chiang Mai.
Yeah,
which is a city all the way up in the north. So by airplane, it's only 50 minutes from Bangkok, which is the capital of Thailand. But to drive, it takes like 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours, because Thailand has amazing infrastructure. Like, the internet's excellent, the power's excellent, all that is great, but they don't have wide roads. And so as you're like kind of going through the mountains or different areas, you could be stuck behind a truck for quite some time. So driving long distances isn't the best, but every major city has an airport. So it's 50 minutes down to Bangkok from where I'm at. It's an hour and a half to a beautiful sandy beach. Chiang Mai is up north in the mountains. I like visiting the beach. I don't really like being at the beach too. I'm more like a cat. I don't like the sand and I don't like the salt water, but I like looking at it. Yeah. So we'll live kind of up here in these low mountains. Chiang Mai is in a little valley. It's very green. There's mountains all around. If you could see behind me, there's really pretty mountains that way. But yeah, it's a lovely place. And it's also a huge hotspot for digital marketing. It's hard to throw a rock without hitting an SEO that's not just doing SEO, but doing it at a very high level and very, very successful.
Why the move there, brother? Why Chiang Mai? Why not the Philippines as an example? Why not Dubai? Why Chiang Mai?
I think this community is pretty special. When you come here and if you plug into this community, the community will give back. Something for me personally was that I really wanted to have a multi-million-dollar exit. And I knew people here were doing that. And there were people that were willing to share how they were doing that. And I was able to do that last year at my first multi-million-dollar exit. So that was something that was pretty awesome. And obviously it wasn't only because I was in Chiang Mai, but that was, really good. And the other thing that I think about as well is whatever you want, whatever that thing is that you want. I want to do this, or I want to be like those people, or I want to do this particular thing. Think about where they are physically, and then you go there. Because the first people they're going to turn to for partnerships, for JVs, for referrals, if they know like somebody needs this service, they're going to go to the people in their circle, the people that they see on a regular basis. Those are the people they're going to refer out to first. And so I really think it requires you to be there, present, and be physically there and present and active. If you're just a bump on the log, you're not going to get much. But if you're contributing, and you don't have to be an extroverted person or like an outgoing personality person, you just have to be there, and participate. When there are little events, be the guy that goes and gets the ice and the Diet Cokes. That's those small things, but then that allows you to be part of a community and active. And if you do that, I think that gives you opportunities. And I know that in addition to the knowledge that I've received and the time that I've spent, also being able to share my knowledge, I've really gotten access to opportunities that I know I wouldn't have otherwise had.
Interesting, man. It's a big thing I push. So my background, like I said, it is SEO in a way, yes, but it's more so telecommunications and just business. Like I'm a businessman at heart. That's what I tell everyone. And I do a lot of consulting with a lot of companies. And the biggest thing that I stress is life becomes a lot easier when you know the right people. And it's never about what you can do. It's about who you know. At the end of the day, that's all it ever comes down to in life. That's all it ever comes down to. So I think it's very good that you touch on that point. So do you think do you honestly think you would have achieved success like you have if you had have stayed in the States then with your SEO? Or do you reckon biting the bullet, going to Chiang Mai, being a part of that awesome community actually contributed to where you are today?
Absolutely. You know, I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. In the US, I think that's like the fifth largest city. There's like 5.5 million people or something. And I'm confident there are more SEOs there, um, per capita. But I think I went to one meetup ever, and it wasn't anything that anybody was talking about SEO. People weren't talking SEO. They were just kind of there to have some cheese and crackers and a glass of wine, I think. But not really like, hey, I have an actual SEO question here. Like, so yesterday, I like American football, and there's always a Monday night football game. But for us, it happens, you know, in the night. But I have a service through the NFL where you can watch the games anytime. So lunchtime on Tuesdays, there's a local sports bar, and they let me plug in my laptop, and we play the game. And so a few people actually also like American football. So you have to kind of dodge the score in the morning because the game is probably, you know, has been over about 3 hours. But we go and we have lunch and we watch the game and we hang out. And yesterday there was actually somebody new there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm new to Chiang Mai. Do you mind if I ask some SEO questions?" And I was like, "That's exactly why we're here, to have like a relaxed environment where we're just having a good time, having some lunch, watching the game, but then also an opportunity to talk about SEO." And so people, I would say there were 15 and 18 people there, and about half had their laptops out doing some work, asking questions, showing what they're working on, asking for people's advice or opinions on different things. And that's a community that I've never seen anywhere else. You know, if you count that event, and then we have a regular Thursday event for dinner and drinks, with the same kind of thing. It's casual, it's easy. And then usually people do some like co-working days too. Like, hey, we're all going to go to this co-working spot and just work on Wednesday from, you know, morning till mid-afternoon. I don't know where that exists anywhere else. I haven't seen that person where there's that much going on with that kind of regularity. The other thing I would touch on too, though, is when you said bite the bullet and go to Chiang Mai. Something that like some like friends and family said before I left was like, "Oh, you're so brave, you know, for going. You're so brave to move your whole family." And for me, it wasn't bravery; it was selfishness. My life will be better there. I'm leaving you behind. You know, I'm not like adventuring out into the unknown. I'm actually leaving you behind, and I'm going to live a better life. And that's exactly what living in Chiang Mai has done. Like we thought moving here, everything would be pretty good, and it's just been excellent. You know, from the quality of life that we have, the house that we live in, the amenities that we have access to, and then in addition for me professionally, the community and the people that I get to talk to on a regular basis, it's really second to none.
Yeah, I don't think that's selfish, brother. I think you're a husband and a business owner, and you need to do what's best for both of those situations. And I think you made the right call. I don't think that's selfish. I think that's being a leader. I think it's fantastic. Man, when it comes to like, first of all, it's absolutely fantastic because you obviously would have arrived there. You had built a bit of a team over in India, so you understood how to have employees. But then obviously the fiasco that happened over there happened. Where did you really nail down having this, you know, like, I don't know where Vera is. Is Vera in Chiang Mai as an example? Is she overseas?
No. The vast majority of our employees are all in Europe somewhere.
Yep.
We
There
we,
you go.
we pre-COVID, we did so we have 3 locations. Now we have 4 actually, but we had Phoenix, Berlin, Melbourne, and now we have Jamaica in Kingston. But pre-COVID, we really didn't have anybody. The Melbourne office was a paper office more than anything. But we did have offices in Berlin and Phoenix where we kind of had large chunks of people there. And we kind of asked sort of like a hybrid work sort of situation, like just come in and work maybe once or twice a week just so you can be around people. But otherwise, you're as remote as you want to be. And that also we allowed everyone to travel. Just we have kind of strict response times, expectations on when you're going to respond to something internal or to a client. Once COVID hit, we let those offices go, and we didn't see any drop in production because we'd already built this culture on how to handle things remotely. But since COVID, we still have a few people in the US, but almost everyone is somewhere in Europe at this point.
Okay. And how did you go about building a business like that, mate? Like, I think everyone's working in SEO. Most people are working in SEO so they can build a company and then just retire on the beach. So predominantly that's everyone's end goal, man, end goal. So how would you say to the average SEO bloke, it's like, because you know this industry, you know the types of individuals that are in the SEO community, where do you think they fall apart when trying to build the team behind them to help maximize the efficiency of their organizations?
This is my personal opine. I have a business partner, Andy, and we've been business partners on this since the beginning and in all of these other projects. He is excellent on the operations side of actually running a company and marketing a company. And then for the SEO part, I'm more on the strategy side of things and putting the products together. And then that sort of thing. People don't have an Andy. They don't have that they don't have that organization. And something that he and I talked about early on when we started the agency was that we didn't want this to be our forever job. You know, we don't want to run this forever. We want to build for an exit. And SEO agencies are not easy to exit at all. And so, but with that mindset, what you have to do is slowly remove yourself from the company. And you have to find employees and perhaps start them in this position and promote from within, or bring some people, some talent from the outside. But you have to have a structure where essentially you can get to the point where you could leave your company for 6 months, and not only will it maintain, it'll grow, because you have the systems in place to get new clients, to service clients, and to reduce churn. And so what we've done and what we put in place was a leadership team. And so if Andy and I are kind of sitting at the top and sort of maybe broadly responsible for these parts of the companies, there's a team involved that actually is doing the running of the companies. It's implementing those visions or those things that we want to do, or the directions that we want to go. And then below them is a layer of people that are actually then interfacing with clients or doing specific tasks such as content or link building or whatever that might be. And then there are other subgroups after that. And so you slowly but surely hire to take things off of your plate, to get somebody that's going to get hyper focused on that one thing and allow you to continue to pull back. And so I think if you build, what I think you need to do and why people get hung up is they don't have the systems in place, and they're not building with the mindset of an exit. And I think maybe another good way to think about it would be, you know, like when's the only time you fix the leaky faucet or like the door that creaks? It's when you're selling the house, right? Yep. That's what everybody does. You live with it. But people do the exact same thing with their business. They've got some leaky faucet, they've got some squeaky door, and they just let it go because you get into this complacency where you're comfortable. Fix the faucet, you know, fix the door, and what happens is you get a better company. You end up making more money as a result. And so if you have that mindset of somebody's going to be looking at this company, are they going to be happy with what they see? Are they going to second guess any of the decisions that we've made? And if you have that mindset of somebody's going to look at this one day, you start making much better decisions. And in making those better decisions, you end up with leaner companies that are more effective. Because, you know, I don't think you have to sacrifice lean and quality. Mm-hmm. What usually happens is there are gaps in your game, and you're just letting things go that you shouldn't be letting go. And so I think you can get lean and be even more effective if you're doing it from the mindset of somebody's going to critique this in a minute. You know, they're going to look at it and then, you know, that's too late to change all those things or try to fix all those things.
Yeah, man. The great book on that is Built to Sell. Like, yeah, anyone that's sitting there being like, how do I implement what Kyle just said?
I truly believe that's the focus you should have. Think about even if you never sell, right? Yep. If you build it to sell, you're going to get to the point that you can step all the way back. You know, and then people are like, why don't you just hire a CEO? Like it's a flippant thing that people say, like, why are you selling your company? You can just hire a CEO. You can and you can't. You know, there are different reasons, but you can't do that unless you've done all of those other things first. So that there is actually something that you can put in and make it turnkey essentially for yourself. But you have to have all that in place first. And I would say the vast majority of people aren't thinking like that, and they're not putting those structures in place at all.
And why, can I ask? Because I'm the opposite. I don't like selling companies. I'm like, this is making me money, I'm gonna hang on to it. Why?
I can talk about that.
Why did you want to exit?
something that I realized is, you really don't make the money for the great decisions that you're making until you sell. So like for example, in pop last month, I found something and it's saving us $1,000 a month. That's great, right? But in the grand scheme of things, when you do it all up, that $1,000 isn't going into my pocket. Maybe let's say I get 20% of that. All right. So that decision I made is worth $200. But when I sell the company, that $1,000 goes on a trailing 12 months. And then let's say it's software. So, let's say pie in the sky and get a 10% multiple on that. Then I'm getting, $120,000. Yeah. And that's see what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
the money, those decisions get paid off at the end. You really don't see it in that moment. You really don't get paid. And then what you're going to be doing, you're like, well, I could take the $200 or I could just put it back in the company, or I could leave it in the company account. And that's a prudent and wise thing to do. So take that win. So you can do that a little bit with money, but then you don't really get paid until that exit happens, where there's like some shares issue where people are purchasing or acquiring portions of it. And so that's why I do like the idea of exiting, because you will get that payday for all those great decisions that you made that got you to the point that you could actually sell.
That's very interesting. That is very interesting, because I like hearing the other side. Like I said, I'm someone that will look at it as like, this thing is making me a few $1,000s a month. I'm hanging on to it compared to exiting. Now, I don't know if that's probably because like I got lucky with my first company that was millions. But that's telecom. That's a big
Sure.
pro. So,
and and a lot in the digital space is impossible to sell. Like a lot of people outside the industry don't know what we're doing or what we're talking about, and so it's hard for them to see value in certain things as to what this company actually might be worth, or a multiple that actually might be worthwhile. Agencies probably get multiples. They look at sellers' discretionary earnings, and that's essentially net profit. It's how much money you could take home. Is the idea. So if your company is, if you could take home $10,000, you say you're making 20,000 a month, and you could take home 10, whether you do or not. Then they take that number and they look at the trailing 12 months, and now you get a whole thing. So that'd be, say, 120,000, and then they look at a multiple, and that's kind of like then how valuable the company is. So agencies, their multiple on that trailing 12 month is at usually like around 2%, a multiple of 2. That's not a crazy multiple compared to software, which is like maybe a 5 to 10x multiple, somewhere in there, depending on the software and how much you can like just recreate it or not. So exactly. So like kind of getting those numbers together then can give you get paid then at the end for all of those things that you did, rather than, just that couple $1,000. I don't think is worth it. I remember what I was saying though, a lot of businesses in SEO, it's hard for them to sell. It's hard for them to get those higher multiples, because you could have a very successful agency and your multiple is just going to be nothing. And in some software that should get in that 5 to 10 range might not be able to, because the VC guys, the equity guys, those guys that are going to make these acquisitions in large part don't really understand what you're doing. So you probably have to find a comparable business within the industry that's looking to bolt on. And that's a little bit trickier to do, because you probably have to go through brokers with that as well. So a lot of these things I can see the argument of hanging on to, because you maybe can't get the entire value of what it is actually worth, because the people you're going to be talking to don't really understand what we're doing. And there might be some fear there's always this fear that SEO is going to die, in 2 weeks. And again, because people just don't understand what we're doing.
So, question then. Is your intention to sell pop?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Get me paid. Get me paid for sure. You buying?
No, that brother. What's that going to be, like 10 mil? Yeah, not today.
That's the plan, actually. But yeah, I'm not worried about the end of SEO, but I would like to get paid with all the work that went into. I knew nothing about SaaS or SaaS business. It's been quite the education over the last 5 years. Like, here's a fun fact. We've been running a free trial, right? Like every SaaS tool does, 7-day free trial. And what we found was an amazing amount of fraud where people will sign up and they'll put their credit card in, but that credit card has $0 on it. So they get through the end of the 7 days and they've used the tool, and then their card fails.
Ah, okay. That's
And because they had
interesting.
no intention
Yeah.
of paying. And then on top of that, even people that maybe have valid cards, they end up canceling as well, because they get this mindset of like, oh, I don't want to learn a new tool. I don't want to, because any tool has a learning curve, and SEO tools have a pretty high learning curve. Most of them do. And they realize like, well, I'm just in this free trial. I didn't pay any money. I don't really want to invest in anything, right? So just a few weeks ago, we dropped our free trial and we said, hey, look, you just have to pay. But if you're not happy, we will give you a full refund in the first 7 days. Our sales have exploded.
Yep.
Like exploded. And our churn has dropped, which means that people aren't paying and then asking for the refund. What I think they have is there's the perceived value, that this is a valuable tool. I have paid money for this. So they're willing to do more for the learning curve, to actually put the investment in. And then we've gotten rid of all of this fraud. So we've saved a ton of money. Sales have increased and churn has gone down. It's nuts. And that's so counterintuitive, because you would think, oh, you need to give a 7-day free trial so people can try out your tool. How else are they going to want to do this? But if you have a low price point, or a price point that's reasonable for most people to come in and look at it, they're willing to do that. But as a result, I think it completely changes the perspective of the user, of the person getting in there, and actually will have them put more investment into actually becoming a long time user. And that's exactly what we've seen in just a short amount of time.
Indeed, when there's no consequences for actions, then things go awry. So if you are giving that free opportunity, and this is what I say to a lot of business owners, if you give someone a bottom dollar and you sit here and say, this is our line in the sand, we're not going to cross it, people need to move into the mindset of actually thinking about what they're doing, compared to being like, oh, I saw Ronnie's video on Page Optimizer Pro. That looked cool. All those reds and greens. I'll go try it, because there's no consequence for not following through. So yeah, I think you made the right choice, and obviously the numbers support that hypothesis.
It's myself and so Andy, my business partner, he runs the marketing part of Pop, and then we have another business partner, Maria, who's our CTO, and it is our product lead. And she and I have just been looking at Chart Mogul and just trading screenshots and dying. like in the span of like one time she sent me a thing, it was like, hey, we just picked up this many users in this amount of time. And then I pulled it on, I was like, no, you're wrong. We got 2 more in the time that you like sent that screenshot to me. It's been nuts. And but again, like that kind of thing is just so counterintuitive to how you would think that people would want to get in and try your tool out and how to like grow a SaaS base, and realizing you can't give it away for a free trial. It's not. Now this experiment could go wrong, and it's 6 months when I'd be like, we kind of made a mistake. But the early data is looking so promising. It's almost like I wish I had learned this years ago. But that's part of running these types of businesses and trying to figure out how you're going to do it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's business, baby. You've always got to fall over and pick yourself back up. So, all right, man. I guess let's jump into boring old SEO.
Right then, totally fine,
dude. So SEO testing. I'm mates with Chrissy Palmer. I'm in his testing group. I love it, and I'm even in IMG. And I think that is a very, very integral part when it comes to SEO. But what are your thoughts on SEO testing? Why did you really, because you're pretty much up there with one of the first guys that started testing the algorithm. What got you to think that way?
The first thing, and I've said this before, I think on other shows or times I've spoken, was when you're just starting out and you're like, is this a ranking factor? And you search in Google and you get like 3 yeses, 3 no's, and 3 maybes. And I was like, that's just not going to work. Like that's not going to help you learn anything at all, or give you something actionable. So then I realized I was like, I need to run my own sites. I need to have little baby sites here and there and different things where then I can tinker with them and then I can learn. And then I started thinking about, I had this day where I was searching and I got this screen that said there are no results for this term. I had typed in the word incorrectly. And I was like, hold on, there's a place where the sidewalk ends in Google. And I was like, well, what can I build a page for that term? And I did. And then the page shows up. And I was like, oh, hold on. Now I've got an environment that I completely control. And then so from there, I developed some methods on how to do those types of things. And I don't always do it that way for a complete environment that I control, but trying to find environments that have limited results. And then the reason that you're doing that then is you can create multiple pages going after the same term that are identical. And then from there, you tweak one thing on one page. And then you watch to see if that page goes up in the SERPs, if it stays where it's at, or if it drops in the SERPs. And then you know positive factor, negative factor, no factor. And then you can start to repeat that test. I also learned something early on too that you can test in the inverse. So let's say you want to say, is an H1 stronger than an H2, right? This is actually the first test I ever ran. What I did was I had these identical pages and I put an H1 on all of them, and on the other one I had an H2. So the one that had H2 had no H1s, and the ones that had H1s had no H2s. And lo and behold, that H2 page dropped to the bottom. Well, then I did the test the other way, and the H1 rose to the top. And then when you tested the inverse and you can see it on both sides, then you know you have something there. Because ideally you'd want to rerun tests for verification. And if you do a test 5 times in a row and get the same result, I think you're at like 94% probability that this is correct. And that's just outside of scientific. They want 95%. So you're just outside, but that takes running that test 5 times. And that is time consuming and difficult, and tests fail sometimes just because, this is Google.
Yep.
So testing in the inverse really accelerated a lot of my learning and understanding, because then you only have to do the test 2 times. And if you get the one result in the one way and one result in the other way, then you know what you've got. So those types of things then really allowed me to accelerate to find out like what is a stronger factor, what is not a stronger factor. And I could get things down to real high degrees of certainty, so that if I can take these things and replicate them, it gives me the best chance for success. Because you do need to keep in mind that SEO is a game of probability. You're not going to hit every time. You can do the same thing and you know this is right. It just simply will not work every time. But that's not the goal. You don't have to be 100% correct every time. I think to be an expert, you need to be 70% correct. Which still means you're missing 3 out of 10. I think most SEO is about 50%. That's good SEO. And that's a coin flip. That's 50-50. I think most people are below that. And that's why they think SEO isn't anything you can learn about, because their SEO does suck. Like if you're only getting 1 out of 3 pages to do something, I can see why you get frustrated with it. So, but what I'm saying is, like, in all of those testing and doing those things, you can find the factors that are going to give you the highest probability for success. So that if you repeat that over and over and over again, you know that you are going to beat out those people that are at 50% that are considered good, and then the most people that are at 30%. And so that's the idea. So the testing can kind of get you into that realm where you know that these things give you the best opportunity, the best probability, and in doing so, you can be extremely successful in all of your SEO projects.
And what sparks your interest for a test, mate? Because obviously there's got to be certain criteria, because like you just said, it is so time consuming. It is ridiculous and ludicrous to try and put together every single thing where you might be like, oh, that looks semi-interesting. What do you really use to select when you are going, no, we should actually test that? Where do you really place emphasis?
Most of it comes from problems from clients or people arguing with me that use POP. Like they'll be like, well, POP's giving this information and that can't be correct. I hear this all the time, actually. This is my favorite thing. Somebody will say like, the guy that's in page 1 has this garbage website and he's got terrible backlinks, and I have no idea why he's ranking well. And then the very next line is, and also I ran the stuff in POP, and POP's numbers are clearly wrong. These don't make any sense. So what happens is the tool has given them the information. They are just refusing to accept it. They just can't grasp that this is actually what's going on on this web page. And so then in their minds, they're still frustrated that this garbage website is beating them, and they think POP is wrong. And so a lot of the tests that we run is like, well, let me show you how that works. And we can actually run a test on it, and like this one particular thing that they're doing or that doing, and those types of things, and we can show them. And those are things that we've done in the past. I've actually kind of stopped doing that for POP. We do it internally, but even showing them the test doesn't do anything to sway them. Like, well, let me show you this, and they're all, no, that can't be. So we do it internally to know that we're right. But that fuels a lot of testing is just in, people find odd situations. You can objectively look at this page like, that is weird. And then you can run some tests on some things like, well, is this a factor? Is that a factor? That kind of stuff. And that's where a lot of testing concepts come from.
And how would you, what would you say, mate, would be like the best way for individuals to set up tests? Like, should someone be using pbn.hosting to be able to throw up 3 or 4 websites that are unique from a template and it's cheap hosting? Or should you be actually biting the bullet and going out there and getting something like WPX and having it on the more premium end hosting to simulate and emulate what an actual client would be doing? How do you really go about making sure that the groundwork is set to ensure the results are good results?
There are 2 major types of tests, really. One is what we've just kind of been talking about, that we try to get it as scientific as possible. And when I say scientific, what I mean is we're trying to reduce as many variables as possible. And we're trying to get it down. And is it 100%? No, but neither are all scientific tests, because we're on the Earth, and the Earth isn't a closed system. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, so like, that's something you might be like, well, there are so many variables. Yeah, there are variables on Earth too.
Yeah.
And, we are not in a perfectly closed system, regardless of where you're running your test, but you try to do it as well as you can, right? And that's the idea. And so that's kind of like that one version where we are trying to drill down to identical pages, and we're trying to change one thing. That's one type. The other type is more like a case study, where you can run it for a month or 3 months or even 6 months and watch how that performs. If I was going to do the case study side, I would probably try to do a more realistic site. And something that you can do is just put up a hobby site, something that you like to do. You're into knitting. Great. Put up a little knitting site. That way you probably don't even mind you don't even mind writing the content yourself. But then when the latest and greatest shiny new technique arrives, run it there first. Give it a go, see what happens. And they're like, we need to build, you want to try a mass page plugin for whatever reason. Do it on that side first and see actually how it works, what happens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I would do. Or there's this new shiny idea, this new guy came out of wherever and he's talking about this particular thing. Great. Try it there, watch how it performs. And that's more of a case study. I would do that as more realistic as I could. On the other side, with the other test, what I've found is do it as cheaply as possible. I would say that I do get a lot of success getting a domain off of auction for $11 or $20 that has a little bit of history, because then Google's going to crawl it faster. Whereas if you're doing like a site from scratch, there's a chance that Google's not going to crawl it for quite some time. And so I would spend the $20 and have something that has just a couple backlinks coming into it, had some stuff going on, nothing major. You don't need anything big at all, because then you're probably going to burn through it in 6 months to a year anyway. But that will accelerate your testing. So I go as cheaply as possible, but I would probably not take a site just from scratch. But on the other side, if I'm doing a case study, I try to do it on a real-ish site.
Dude, that's great insights, man. That's fantastic insights. Because some people just don't know where to start when it comes to testing. They think they need to go balls to the wall and just, get WPX hosting, man, and do all of that crazy nonsense. No, I
don't even know. I think I've had like a legacy Green Geeks account, since like 2014 or something. I'm pretty sure that's where most of my tests live.
Yeah,
on some server over there.
Fair enough, man. Jeez, fair enough. Well, that's testing. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to testing? Like where might be a valuable place for individuals to find a stack of results from testing? Because obviously you had a lot of stuff done in the past. Where can people find that?
All my current tests are on img.courses. That's where we publish 3 times a year now. I don't really know. You said you're in Chris Palmer's. There are little groups here and there. There aren't that many groups. I don't know if SIA is still there. That's where I originally started with posting my tests. I'm not sure what they're doing right now, or if they're still going. But yeah, come on into IMG. Keep in mind that if you want to run your own tests, it is time consuming. It is not fun. A lot of people come in all excited and then they slowly go away. I would say though, if you want to get into testing, I think the one thing that is really good for it is the problem solving, because you do need to figure out how to like limit things so that you can feel good about the results that you're getting, that you've eliminated enough variables where they're actually getting at the thing that is the factor. There's this apocryphal story about Isaac Newton where he was challenged to find the weight of smoke. And so in the story, what he did was he took a cigar and he weighed it. And he said, okay, the cigar is 10 ounces. And they lit the cigar and took it down to ash, re-weighs the ash, and the ash is 3 ounces. So the weight of smoke is 7 ounces. And I learned this when I was a psychology. I have a degree in psychology, and I did experimental psychology. Yep. And the concept is, in psychology, how do you measure a feeling? How do you measure happiness, or how do you measure sadness? But you can. And the concept is that everything is measurable if you can think about it the right way. And it might not be the most direct approach. So like Isaac Newton wasn't catching the smoke in the air,
stuffing it in a jar.
Like, come on in. That's an indirect way to do it, but it gets to the result is the idea. Yep. So in anything that we're doing within SEO, it's the same idea. Everything is measurable if you can think about it the right way. And so getting your brain tuned to that type of problem solving, I think, is really, really valuable in any kind of SEO that you want to do.
Well, that's sick. And we'll cover the juicy results later on in the chat, obviously, but like we'll jump into the on page, man. Cause like on pages, I found you through on page because I was trying to, really upskill there. Cause to me, it just makes complete sense. It's like, wait, if I invest my time in on page, I can save money off page.
That's exactly right.
Quicker, and I have control over it. Someone could send a spammy link into the site, and if the on page is atrocious, well, Google's going to support the actions of the spammy link then. Sense. So on page, brother, I guess if we look at it in this concept, if we, not to bore everyone, but if we were to sit there, we know we've got to put the main keyword in the H1, the title, the URL, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. But let's say we have that perfect score in POP. Let's say we've done all of that work. Everything looks perfect in POP. What is actually the next stage of on page? Because we've all had it. I can get a VA to get me a 79 in POP right away. But what should I be looking at then if I was to take over that account from the VA? Where should I really be putting my efforts in? What really do I need to be looking at?
I have a couple thoughts here on this. One is you really want to make sure you're giving Google the page that it wants. And so it surprises me how many people don't actually look at the SERP that they're trying to win. They might search and they might kind of glance at it, but they don't actually look at those web pages that are on there. And you really want to make sure that you are giving Google the page that it wants to rank. You can't teach Google a new trick. You can't say like, no, this is obviously a better page, Google. Because Google's not going to read it and be like, oh, I am a better person now for having read this. That's just not part of the process. And so a lot of times people are like, I'm trying to rank this page and I've got a good score in POP. And then I'll look at it and it's like a product page, like a single product page. And then you go to the SERPs and all the pages in there are long form roundups. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what score you get in POP. You're not giving Google the page that it wants. And so a big thing, and I think concept shift for a lot of people is look at the page that Google wants. That's what you need to create. And then you want to make sure that your score is a good corresponding score. In addition to what you mentioned too, my other thought is, like not overthinking it, right? As you said, to kind of put the big things in all of those places. You do want to make sure that Google can actually read that page and is going to be happy about reading it. And a mistake that I see a lot is like a massive header image that's taking up a ton of space, because that first run through Google, because there are several Google Ads that come in, there is a place where it stops. And I think Ted Kabita said it's somewhere around 30 kilobytes. It might be up to like 50 kilobytes of data is what all they're going to get through. So if you have nothing at top except a menu and an image, and it's a lot for Google to get into, they might not get into the meat of your site for quite some time. And you're really shooting yourself in the foot. So you want to make sure that you're lean up top and you've got that target term, as you said, not just in the body, but really in the top. There's a general heuristic, a rule of thumb, if you will, that you want to get your keyword in the first paragraph. And that's correct, but it's not the first paragraph. It's in that first 50 kilobytes is actually what it is. And so people just say that first paragraph because they're thinking about that's what it is, but it's actually the amount of data that Google's going to have to get through. So you want to make sure that you've got like those types of things dialed in, because I've seen a lot of sites that have a lot of problems are hurting themselves in those ways. So those kind of small things. And then there's certain other things and elements on the page that can make it, you've got some JavaScript counter at the top. Google hates that, and then that's all the top. And then maybe you've got some ad stuff over here that's intrusive a bit, and all those things individually aren't going to kill you, but then when you start adding them all together, it turns into a problem. So when I'm looking for what's going on, I start to look at those kind of elements. I have actually a third point. I really like what you said to get to like a 79%. That's a great starting point. And then you want to see how that page performs. The next thing I like to do is what we internally call climbing the ladder. So let's see how it performs. Let's get 2 caches in. A cache is when Google takes a picture of your page, and that typically takes 5 to 7 days for 1 cache. So we're talking 10 to 14 days, maybe up to 21 days later. Then take that 79% to 85%. And then see how the page performs. And then take that 85% to 90%, and then 90% to 90%. And then what you'll see is it's going to hit here, and then it's going to go up a little bit, and it's going to go up a little bit, and it's going to go up a little bit. And I found that that's significantly more effective than just getting to 100%.
Okay.
Right out of the gate.
Yep.
So like kind of getting that lower number, see how it performs, then tweak and add, tweak and add, tweak and add. I found that provides a much better result in the end with your on page. And then you're ultimately at, say, that 98%, 99 or 100%. And that should be attainable within the content brief score and pop. But that method I found works so much better. Now, the problem is it takes time, and it takes resources, and it takes patience. And most people have none of those 3 things.
None of those 3 things, brother.
So that's the kind of where the issue is. But if you can do that, I think that's a really effective way to do your on page.
That's interesting, man. That's because I always harp on about page structure. I think that's why I use Oxygen, because it's just so lean. There's no noise on it. It's just very, very lean. Man, when it comes to sprinkling in additional items, so I'll give a little, maybe it's not a secret, but it's something that I focus very heavily on, is when I start typing in the word. So let's say it's a plumber. I'm trying to optimize for a hot water plumber as an example. I'll start typing in hot water and then plumber, and those preemptive words that I'm seeing up the top, I grab every single one of them and I throw them into the page. Is there anything that you do additionally to help really tie in the SERP to make sure that our page reflects what Google wants to see once the page structure is complete?
I teach this little trick. So you search for your term, right? Scroll to the bottom and find the related searches. Pick the one you like the most. I like to call this my lead related keyword. And then I'm going to put that into my first H2 is kind of the concept. So that's going to be the first section on my page. And you can choose that first one for a variety of reasons. It has the most search volume as a secondary term. It has the fewest competitors, or it just takes the page in the direction you need to go to write the page. Doesn't matter. Choose the one you like the best. Click on that one. Now you've got 2 pages, and scroll to the bottom, and now you've got 2 related searches. You with me so far? You've got the original one for your target keyword, and you've got the second one for your lead H2. All right. Now look for matches between those 2 sets of related keywords. All of those are semantically related, and get them on your page. All those ones that match.
Yep.
And what you're going to find is you're going to start ranking for a lot more keywords a lot quicker.
Dude, that's excellent. Excellent. Yeah. People also ask is another good one, guys.
Yeah. People also, and don't be afraid of other people ask of 0 volume. You throw that in, it's going to say 0. It's because they have no data on it, but literally somebody asked that question.
Yeah.
Like that's the only way for it to appear. And it's probably not just a person either. So I love those sections for sure. And that gives you another opportunity to take up more SERP real estate. Because if you write a slightly better answer, maybe get it up higher on the page than the other person has it, then you can maybe steal their spot in that related search. And now you've got one more spot on page 1.
So we nailed the on page. Like, that's fantastic. I think it's absolutely brilliant, brother. And your approach to it. How do we tie it in with the rest of the site? So what type of internal linking should we be doing? And what sort of supportive content should we be creating? And how do we structure it all in?
So I subscribe to Avalanche Theory. And this, I don't know that we have enough time to go through that. But the basic idea on this is that there is a certain level that Google will instantly trust you for a term. And this is your tier. And everyone's probably seen this where you launch a term and you're just, page 2, page 3, and you didn't do any SEO. And it's maybe a longer phrase, lower competition, and you just think you're an SEO god. Then you do it again for another one, and you can't crack the top 100.
Yeah.
And what's going on here? And the difference is one was in your tier and one wasn't. Is probably the difference between those 2 pages. And so the idea is that if you can find terms that are within your tier And that's basically how strong your site is. And a measurement to do that is how much traffic you're getting. And if you find terms in your tier and you continue to post in your tier, you're going to start winning these pages and these terms really without any SEO. Mm-hmm. And then as they gain clicks and impressions and keywords, you're going to move up tiers, and you can go after tiers, keywords in this tier, and then keywords in that tier. And what's great is it really ends up Google proofing your site. You update proof your site because Google isn't giving you something. You know, you're not boosting up into a high level, say with like a backlink. You're just going up as Google is rewarding you for the authority that you have. A lot of times now, I don't really think of updates or penalties being slapped. I think it's just people going back down to the tier that they belong in. Yep. You know, they've done something else to boost them out of their tier, and Google's like, I don't like that anymore. And they take it away and they just drop down into the tier that they belong. So what I like to do is identify terms in my tier, and they don't have to be specific towards target pages, just generally for the site, just so that this concept works for this site. And then once I've got, say, a group of whatever, I'm going to then match those to target pages. So I've got a target page, and that could be a page that a keyword that I have no business winning right now, and that's totally fine. But I've got that page done, and I'm going to put, say, 5 of those other pages that I found for those terms that are in my tier. Mm-hmm. I'm going to link them together, and I'm going to link up to that target page, and that's all the linking I'm going to do. And that silo structure, and the linking is done within the body, not through URL structure at all. I try to keep my URLs as flat as possible. All that linking, but they're not linking out to Wikipedia. They're not linking out to other pages. They're not linking out to whatever. They're just linking to each other and up to that target page. And what I found is that creates this little engine of good, because then as those pages get their keywords and impressions and clicks, they gain their own authority, and they're passing it to each other. And then they're all passing that authority up to your target page. And it allows you, and then as your site grows without doing SEO, really just by out researching your competitors, and you're finding those terms in your tiers, and you're continuing to grow this out, what happens is that you don't need backlinks as much. And then anytime there's a massive update or a big change, you can ride that storm out a lot better than anybody else, because you don't have anything for Google to take away from you. And the best part is that this is all completely white hat. You haven't done anything outside the guidelines. You have posted content on your site, you've written it effectively, and you've done your internal linking. And all of that is completely within the rules, and allows you to compete against large sites in a way that it's just we just need to crank out this content. We need to do the research and crank out the content. And that's all you need to do. So that would be my approach for what I would do for specific types of content for supporting pages, how I'd link them together, and then how I would use that to push up my target pages.
Good, that's excellent. Two technical questions on the Avalanche theory. First one is, what type of, you said that it can be a bit broad as long as the keyword, the long tail keyword we're going after is in our sort of category, like it's kind of covering it. But then the second thing is, you mentioned that you're not adding in any additional links. So are you removing the footers completely from those?
No. That's a great point. Menus, footer, sidebar, don't really care.
Yep.
What I'm looking at is the links within the body. Yep. So I want the first link, let's say in that first paragraph, going to my target page. And then I want the next 2 links somewhere in the body going just 2 links going to other silo posts, other supporting posts. And I personally like to keep them in sets of 5. But that's really just more for administrative purposes. Some projects that we work on, we can do them for 20 or 30 just because that they have somebody internal on their team that can handle that. But doing it in a set of 5 is a good number. It also doesn't overwhelm you.
Yeah.
You can do 5.
And you send backlinks into those pages once it's time to start implementing off page. Are you sending in links to those specific pages, or are you?
I like sending links into the supporting pages a lot.
Yep.
It gives you another layer of protection. Most link penalties are at the page level. So if something were to go wrong, you can burn down that page rather than your target page. And then again, because you've got that great internal linking set up, and once that hits, it's not just going to that page, it's going out to all those other supporting pages. So they all go up a little bit, and then their links up to your target page all go up a little bit as well.
Excellent, brother. And I guess like the final part of the on-page section is, you mentioned that you didn't like linking out to Wiki and that in there. How come? Because I'm the opposite.
I don't know why I want to give them my juice.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I want my juice.
Yeah.
If you need to link out, like if there's a reason to link out, link out. That's the point of the internet. Yep. But I wouldn't have as part of my process a linking out just for the sake of linking out. If you need to make a citation, if you're making a point, make the point. That's exactly what the citation, that's what it's there for. It's saying like, hey, I got this information from over there, or hey, you want to learn more about this? That's great. Here's a good site that does it. That's what the interlinking is there for. But I wouldn't add it as part of my base template or as part of my process. Do it if it's necessary, but just don't do it for the sake of doing it.
Interesting, man. I'm going to try that one out because yeah, like honestly, my philosophy is right down the bottom, we find somewhere where we can throw a citation and throw it off just to try and boost up, because I have actually found, and this is with my own stuff, I'm more likely to rank well if I'm linking out to something specifically talking about the location or the topic.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So, yeah. I mean, if there's, like I said, if there's a reason to do it, do it. Like, hey, we're talking about this location. You want more information about this location? Here's a great resource. That makes perfect sense to me. But some people just really get into it. Like within every article, we have to have 3 app links, one to Wikipedia, one to a .gov, and one to some .org or something like that, right? And they've got these weird rules about it, and that's not what I would do. But if you've seen that and it's effective, by all means, do it. And then that makes sense. You're talking about a location. Hey, here's more information about that location. We don't have this information on our site. You talk about location, you talk about some point of interest. Linking out to the Wikipedia page for that point of interest is a great idea.
Excellent, man. Excellent, brother. Any final tips or tricks then on page before we move into the final sections of the interview? Like, is there anything else?
I think we've gone through a lot.
Dude, I'm sweet, man. Like I said, I'll clear my calendar for this, baby.
I think we've gone through a lot. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Awesome, man. I guess final thing will be, like, before we jump into like just the random questions, what is working in SEO right now and what is not working? So what are some things, if someone was to implement today, what's definitely going to move that needle? And what would be something, if I implemented today, it's going to drop me down?
The only thing I'm going to do it from the negative side, because just about everything, all the sites that I work with or all the things going on are all been fine in the last couple updates. And I know at the time of taping, the helpful content updates seem to have really wrecked a lot of people, especially people in affiliate. And the sites that I've seen that seem to be getting hit the most are the ones that are like review roundup type sites. Like they give a review on a lot of different things. And it seems that Google hasn't really created too many winners out of that. It seems like just about everybody's gotten a haircut. And they put in sites like Quora or Reddit, those types of sites, in place of where somebody had a really nice write about things to do in Seattle or best vacuum cleaners for 2023, something like that. Those sites seem to have all gotten a hit, and I haven't seen too many winners out of that, of sites that are like that. So what I would encourage people would be to avoid doing a pure site like that. Obviously, sites need those types of things, but what I would look for is a way to diversify the traffic that I'm getting, or the type of traffic that I'm getting from Google, away from just being a complete review roundup type site. I would look for ways that you can monetize display ads by giving information. And I would look for ways to get my own products or white label some products and actually sell some things. So you look a little e-commerce as well. So maybe you've got the roundups, and that's where you're getting your affiliate commission. Maybe you've got informational type stuff, and that's where you're getting display revenue. And then maybe some productized things where you're actually selling your own products and doing that way. And I would try to diversify my sites like that as much as possible.
And what's not working? What would be something, if I was to go away and do it today, I'm definitely going down?
The thing that's not working is just those pure review sites. I think they're in trouble for the long term.
Yep.
And so that's kind of more of a broad strategy type of thing than an actual thing within SEO. But because I think everything else, like we just talked about, all that works.
Yeah.
It works great. It's been working for years. And I think it'll continue to work for years. And mainly because it's within Google's guidelines. I mean, we haven't talked about anything that's black hat by any stretch of the imagination. So that's where I would go with kind of making sure that I'm not just doing a pure review roundup site, because I see those, and that's kind of been, Google's been antagonistic towards affiliate sites for years. Like in the last 2-3 years, you've really seen every hit just seems to just wreck affiliate sites, and especially those sites that are in that review type. So I would avoid a pure site like that. I would shift towards informational sections, and then also e-commerce sections on my site.
Beautiful. And with, I would like, now we'll just jump into the random sort of questions, man. Then we'll be finished. But I was wondering, I did miss one thing on the EAT. Now with EEAT, we've done our authors page. You know, we put out a few guest posts with mentioning our brand name, blah, blah, blah. We set up the social profiles. Dude, what's the shit that actually matters? What's something that really matters when it comes to this side of it? Building up.
Okay. Here's the easiest way I think I can explain this one is real companies don't have EAT issues. They don't. Like if it's a real company, they're a real company, and they're happy to say that they're a real company. And so, and this is where affiliates run into problems, because most affiliates want to hide themselves in the corner and nobody sees them, right? So what you want to do here, the trick is look at a real company in your space and emulate that. And if you, or conceptually you can think about, like, if our website was an actual building, an actual business that was sitting somewhere, what would they be doing? And that, let that be your guiding star for how you're going to handle your EAT. Make yourself a real company. Project yourself as a real company. Show Google, show a bot. Think about it. It's not a human looking at your site. It's a bot coming in and crawling. It's going to look and crawl for certain sorts of things. Do you have organizational schema on your site? In addition to the author page, do you have person schema on there? You know, like, are you demonstrating that makes it easy for a bot to see these things and understand the connections between them? And that's where I would focus on. So it's not just getting the author page up. It's not just getting the address on the site. It's also getting that within schema and linking within that schema as you can to make associations between those pages or those things. And so that's where I would focus. And then really at the end of the day, am I a real company? Am I showing that I'm a real company? And I would do any and all that I could to demonstrate that, and think about it from the point of a bot that is blind. You know, a bot can't look at your website and say, like, oh, this is a pretty website. They spent a lot of money on it. They spent a lot of money on this website.
Yeah.
Google doesn't care.
Yeah.
They don't care at all. That's not the point of it. It's, can a bot go and find this information and feel confident enough that this is an actual legitimate entity, a real thing.
Interesting, brother. Interesting. I guess, man, like, final section, bro, like, final few questions, dude. What are your predictions for the future of SEO? But what can people also do to protect themselves against the downsides that we're seeing now? As more SERP real estate goes away, how can people start ensuring that they diversify their revenue streams?
Yeah, diversification is the actual key, right? And I think I touched on that a little bit earlier with, you know, don't just be one thing. Throw in some e-com, you know, throw in informational pages that are just going to get you display revenue, those types of things. I think those are an absolute must. You know, I've been doing SEO for a decade, and SEO has died, I think, every month of every year for the last 10 years. Yeah. Like, there's always something that is, this is the end, you know, and it hasn't happened yet. As long as it's an algorithm, as long as there is a computer math program making these decisions, there will always be SEO. And there will always be ways to make money. You know, there will always be ways to do that and handle that. So I would make sure that I'm staying on top of what's going on in the SERPs, but I wouldn't be concerned that SEO is going to die in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years even. I think we'll be around for another decade, because I think it'll still be an algorithm. The other reason that I think it's not going to go away is because I think I saw the numbers, something like 62% of Google's revenue comes from ads in search. And it's kind of like, they're not going to let that money go away anytime soon. And so I think they will delay a lot of things that could potentially end the way people search, because it's not in their best interest to let that happen. But what I think will happen, especially within the SERPs, is augmented search results that are more personalized to you. Google does a lot of that already, right? They personalize to your location. They personalize to your browser history. They personalize towards a few other things as well. That's already happening. I think we'll just see more of that. And that's where the AI stuff will come into play. So what I think you'll see is very, like, larger featured snippet areas, or more stuff on the side that is more personalized. And so what that's going to mean, though, is that in addition to showing up on page 1, you're also going to need to show up in those other areas. And what that speaks to me is that's just another form of optimization. That means we're going to have to optimize once to make sure that we're in the top 10. We're going to have to optimize twice to make sure that we show up in those special areas as well. I think a lot of that's going to come down to a lot of semantic SEO. Are you hitting your NLP type stuff? Do you have good structure with your H1s, your H2s, and H3s, your semantic structure? So it's easy for a language bot to come in and pull out information and put it into those extra places. So for me personally, I see as search goes, I think it's going to get more lucrative for SEOs, and I think it's going to get more lucrative for sites that can make sure that they're staying on top of getting into those special areas, as well as maintaining the SEO that they're doing to stay within those top results.
Do you believe it's worth venturing into learning other skills such as Google Ads, mate? Because it's my personal opinion that we are seeing so much of the real estate taken away. And if we sit here and think about it, Google's not going to depart from 62% of its main revenue generator. So why don't we learn Google Ads? Do you think that is a good thing to be investing your time in or not?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the more tools in the tool belt, the better, right? I can tell you that I know DIMP about Google Ads. I know a bit. Don't get me wrong, but I would not consider myself an expert on it at all. But then the point is like find an expert, right? Mm-hmm. Find somebody that can do it and get them on your team. But I think you're right. Adding skills is a great way to do it, and at a minimum, you need to understand how it works. The worst thing, it's like when you take your car to the mechanic. Do you know anything about engines? I know nothing. And so like I'm completely beholden to whatever they say, and they're like, well, you got to fix this and that and that. And I'm like, I am in no position to be like, nah, that's ridiculous. But it's the same kind of thing with any of this. If the Google Ads guy is coming and saying we need to do this, this, and this, you should have some knowledge as to what they're talking about, so you can be like, man, I don't know if I like that, and then you can make an informed decision. So I would learn it even just for that. Learning a little bit of code. I can't code in Python to save my life, but I know what Python can do and what it can't do. And so I know that when we're coming up with ideas and features or how we can approach this, I can actually help problem solve. Or when the dev says this is going to take 80 hours to do, like, I know that's not true. I know that's just simply not possible. So having that base knowledge, I think at a minimum will help you make informed decisions, and then go out and get that expert so you can have an intelligent conversation with it, but also help them problem solve as you work through it. So yeah, side skill for sure.
Yeah, man. And how are you introducing and utilizing AI into your organization and to helping to rank clients? Are you using it for on-page tactics? What are you doing with AI?
I hate AI content, by the way. Because it's just duplicate content. It's a spinner. And it's not here to stay. That's the thing. So within Pop, we have an AI writer, and that tool is there, and people can access it. And a lot of people are having great success with it. But I don't see that as the long term for what we're doing, because I think, especially if you're not editing for brand, tone, facts, and uniqueness, I think you're in a lot of trouble, because you're just putting duplicate content on your site. So I think some of the helpful content update is targeted towards that, and it's just targeted towards lower value content. So it's a good jumping off point. It's a good place to start, and that's what I do. But what I really like it for, though, is generating outlines. That to me is a really great way to use it, because you can generate an outline quickly that gets to the point of what you're trying to get on that page, and then give that outline to your writer and have them write. Or you could even give them a little bit, some lines within each of those sections too, to kind of jump them off and get them in the right way. AI is good for that as well. But at a minimum, I really like outline generation and content creation generations, because you can quickly figure out your content for the next several months as to what you want to get out, or the concepts you want to get to.
Yep. So you're utilizing it to generate basically a content calendar to help.
I like that. Yeah. I like that for it. And I like outlines. I don't like the content itself.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really, really insightful. And I guess the final thing, bro, where is the most profitable industries for SEOs to focus on to start trying to move into? What do you reckon that'll be?
I just had this conversation yesterday with someone, and, people that are really into some niche hobby will spend money on it. Like those idiots on those stand-up paddle boards. Like, no offense if that's your game. But,
what's a stand-up paddle board?
Like you stand up on the board, and then you've got
the paddle board things. Yeah.
right?
Nah, bro.
That
They can
is
swim with the sharks, man. I'm not doing that
that is
shit.
crazy expensive. Like one of those boards is nuts, and you got to maintain the board, and then you got the paddle, and you got the wetsuit, and then you've got the this and that, and the thing that goes with the car. I mean, all of that is crazy expensive, and even in down times, they will spend the money. Collectibles, I think collectibles are down a little bit now, but like during COVID, collectibles exploded
Mm.
because people aren't going on vacation and they've got the 5K they're gonna spend on the vacation. Now they're just buying baseball cards, or like whatever it is they're into. So I do like the idea of finding like high-end niches, because those types of things are often not susceptible to changes in economy, because if people have the money to spend, they're going to spend it.
Yep.
And people that are in the income brackets to like buy a sup board, like if you're in that income bracket, you're probably staying in that income bracket regardless of what the economy is doing. So those are lower traffic terms, which could be a hurdle to get over. But I think if you get into like those high-end luxury niches, that might be a good play.
Ah, interesting, brother. Dude, thank you so much, man. This has been absolutely fantastic. Where can people find you?
KyleRoof.com might be the easiest thing. All my sites are there. All my projects are there. I post current podcasts and YouTube shows and stuff like that.
Awesome, brother. Well, guys, we'll have a link to everything down below. We'll have Page Optimizer Pro down below. We'll have all of that stuff down below. Kyle, it's been awesome. Thanks for that, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Cheers.